Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I am your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are streaming live from the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy Studio today. And we have the pleasure of having Jason from Four Pillars CrossFit on today. And we're going to be discussing CrossFit and the history of CrossFit and what it all entails. And I can tell you, you don't want to miss out on this episode and stay till the very end because in the first 10 minutes I just discussed with Jason pre-show, I learned a lot about CrossFit, and I'm super excited to learn more. So you don't want to miss out. There might be some surprises that what you thought about CrossFit and or what you didn't know about CrossFit. So stay tuned for that. I do want to mention we had a comment on our YouTube channel from John Dickinson, excuse me, all the way from Switzerland, one of our viewers from Switzerland. And thank you, John, for tuning in and commenting on our YouTube page. He actually had a question about low-dose naltrexone or naltrexone per se, period. He wanted to know about the solubility of naltrexone hydrochloride in water because he is taking the higher dose 50 milligram tablet of naltrexone and crushing it up and putting it in water, which is a very common practice. And maybe in Switzerland you have to do that. In the United States you don't have to do that because you just call a compound pharmacist like my wife or I, and we can make it in a capsule for you. So yes, John, it is soluble in water because it's a HCl salt, hydrochloride salt, which is usually soluble in water. So even up to 100 milligrams per mil. And it is stable for at least 60 days if stored in a light resistance container. So thank you, John, for your question. As always, any listeners or viewers, if you have a comment, please put it on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, and we will get back to you. And hopefully we can answer it live here for you. So without further ado, Jason, thanks for your patience with that intro, and welcome to our show. And give us a little introduction of yourself.
I'm Jason Michaelbook. I am part owner of CrossFit Four Pillars here in Moses Lake with my wife Valerie. Um, my my background is I grew up in Eastern Washington. I grew up a hockey player from the age of 3 years old up until 18, where I dabbled in junior hockey a little bit, and then I made the move. I made the move to officiating hockey, and kind of made my way up through there. And I spent about 12 years in the Western Hockey League as an official,
Wow.
as a linesman. So that's, along with other sports that I did along the way, that was the primary focus for me up until I was about 40 years old. So um, that's kind of a little about myself.
Wow. So then is it Four Pillars CrossFit that brought you to Moses Lake?
No. So by education, I have a degree in chemical engineering.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. Work brought me here. I went to school at Washington State University, spent a year in Tacoma working at Kaiser Aluminum at one of the aluminum smelters, then moved into petrochemical uh, plant down in Kalama, Washington, and then moving finally to Moses Lake at the REC Silicon facility.
Oh.
So, but now I am with Grant County PUD as an engineering manager.
Oh, okay.
So
All
that's my
right.
day
Well,
job.
yeah, right, right. Well, I'm glad you made it to Moses Lake, and we're excited to hear your story about CrossFit and just learn about CrossFit. Janet, what questions you have to start off with Jason?
Well, Jason, it's quite a transfer from hockey to CrossFit. So I just kind of curious as to how that journey brought you to CrossFit.
I was injured.
Okay.
So I would get to the end of a hockey season, refereeing season at the time, and I would have terrible hip bursitis and low back pain, and I had a torn labrum. And through my own research and training methodologies, because I wasn't getting any younger, and it sure seemed like the players were getting younger and faster and stronger, and I needed a way to come up. And I so honestly, I kind of fell into it through physical therapy. There's a couple of physical therapists that actually have their practices in a CrossFit gym. And I started, I started doing back squats to, full depth back squats and learning how to press correctly and bench press correctly and just moving better. And in conjunction with physical therapy, I was able to get myself out of repeated injury, chronic. These were chronic for the most part. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled into CrossFit. And once you hit CrossFit and you YouTube CrossFit, you see, you know, most of the stuff you see on CrossFit is the competitor side or the sports side of training. And I'm a competitor at heart. So that really spoke to me. I'm like, wow, look at all the cool stuff they're doing. They're flipping tires, they're climbing ropes, they're doing Olympic weightlifting, they're swimming, they're riding a bike, they're doing all of these things. And man, that would be cool to be able to do all those things.
Well, I think that's one of the names where that's where the name comes from. CrossFit is like cross training, probably. And, cross training is nothing new. It's been around for at least, decades and decades. And largely cross training would come from the fact that until we had indoor stadiums and all kinds of ways to develop, where you could play baseball year round or you could play soccer year round, we had cross training because things were seasonal. Football was a winter sport. I mean,
Mhm.
football, yeah, was a fall sport. Basketball was a winter sport because it was played indoors. Baseball was a spring sport because a spring summer sport. And sports were meant for seasons, and we always had cross training. Even if you had, I think a great story is Eric Heiden. Eric Heiden was a Olympic skater in the Olympics back in the
Mhm.
70s or 80s, and his cross training in the off season, up until probably 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have ice year round. There weren't places that you could ice skate year round. And well, now there are, obviously. So he would do cross training. He would do biking in the off season. So, and I think the whole concept of cross training, helps prevent injury and overuse injuries, and just helps you make stronger muscles and a stronger body overall. So why don't you go into some of the history of CrossFit and cross training and kind of how CrossFit, the brand name, got started?
So yeah, it's important to make that distinction that CrossFit isn't reinventing anything. They're taking what is already and has existed and kind of just put it in more digestible pieces, and how we implement it. And so CrossFit really was founded in the late 90s. The founder of CrossFit, Greg Glassman, kind of started in a regular gym as a personal trainer. In Southern California. He also happened to be in close proximity to a Navy SEAL base. And occasionally he'd have the Navy SEALs come in and he would do training with them. And he would do basically what is now considered today CrossFit. So CrossFit has a lot of ties to the special forces community. And in fact, a lot of our upper level management are former Navy SEALs, Green Berets, special forces folks. So, yeah, eventually, just because the nature of of CrossFit and a layperson looking at CrossFit and see what we do in a typical workout, it's like, man, you guys are doing crazy stuff. The weights are going everywhere and all of this. And so he eventually had to move out of the gym that he was practicing in. And so he got his own space and he started the first CrossFit gym. And then a few years later, the second CrossFit gym actually was in Seattle, Washington,
Oh,
South
wow.
Seattle CrossFit. So that was the second CrossFit gym to open up. And kind of the rest is history. It was one of the fastest growing exercise methodologies to come up through the 2000s until we are today.
Right. Well, pre-show when we were talking, when you said it was actually founded in 1999, I had no idea it was that recent because it has had a phenomenal growth.
Right.
So, there must be something good about it. So I'm excited to hear more. Janet, what questions do you have for Jason about specifics maybe?
Well, Jason, I think we've all sat and watched the YouTube clips that are probably not the best story
Examples,
or
maybe?
example
Yeah.
of what CrossFit is with safety and different things. So I want to address that because I feel like that's like the little elephant in the room because everybody's watched the bloopers that aren't so
Sure.
great. So let's just get
Cross
that out.
CrossFit fails.
CrossFit
right?
fails. I mean,
Oh
you got to
yeah.
admit, Jason, they are fun to watch. I mean, they are
They
really fun to
are, and they're
watch.
Oh, I don't know.
hilarious. So just like with any any type of exercise, there comes risk, right? So
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to speak for other CrossFit gyms. So just for everyone's knowledge, every CrossFit gym is independently owned and they manage how they see fit. And the way that we've been taught is we call it we have a little acronym MCI. It's mechanics, consistency, and intensity. So you learn the mechanics, you get consistent at using those mechanics, and then and only then are you allowed intensity. So, right. So if
Yeah,
you were
makes
to
sense.
come into our CrossFit gym, you're going to use a PVC pipe until
Yep.
we feel comfortable that how you're going to move a barbell or a dumbbell or a kettlebell. Interestingly enough, there's been a ton of research on CrossFit injuries. So CrossFit injuries, in all actuality, are in line with current exercise methodologies. It runs about 19 to 21%, which is on par with everything else.
Right.
Consequently, running has a 73% injury rate.
Oh yeah, right, absolutely. It's one of the hardest things. I was talking to my youngest son yesterday about running, and it's he's only not quite 20 years old, but
Yeah.
it's the highest impact, most prone to injury exercise out there. You have to be really careful. You have to have good mechanics, and as you age, you have to be super, super careful.
Yeah. So yeah, we teach you how to run, right? We teach you to run. We don't like a heel strike in the run. We like a forefoot to midfoot strike. We like cadences around 180 steps per minute, right? Those are the types of things that that when you come to a CrossFit class, it's not just exercise. You're going to learn how to move. We really see ourselves as teachers.
Yeah, that's great to know. And I think one of the things we were discussing earlier, Jason, is that, from the outside looking in, we see these YouTube videos of CrossFitters, or we think of the CrossFit super competitive people. And so that's what we think of a common CrossFit gym. And honestly, that's kind of what I thought, your gym would be, is just, you go in there and you try to do as much and as hard as you can, as quick as you can. And you're on a national leaderboard to compete with that. But you're saying that's not necessarily the case.
No, in fact, if you go into like today's workout, so we do have one workout, but that workout is optimized to your ability. So even though we have one workout up there, up on our whiteboard, everyone is going to be doing a different version of that workout just because, hey, I have a new person here and I'm not looking to get them so sore that they don't want to come back. Or I have a veteran, that's been CrossFitting for years. Maybe they can do the workout as written, but everybody's doing the workout according to their own ability. All right. And we stress that we go through. So every workout has a purpose, and we communicate that at the beginning of class, right? The purpose of this workout is we want you in this time domain. We want you to lift this relative load. We want, these number of reps completed. So that's how we frame each workout. And then we modify the workout so you can be at that time domain. You can be at that loading, relative loading. We can be at that rep range. So even though we have one workout written up, if you were to look into the room, everybody's doing a different type of workout.
I see. That's good to know. So what is this typical? I mean, all these, there's so much varied because it's the nature of CrossFit, but what does a typical workout look like? How long is it? How many sets? How many reps? I know that's a broad question, Jason, but if somehow you can narrow that down,
Well,
it might answer some questions. I know, right?
I mean, we do everything from something that would last 2.5 minutes, which is a dead sprint, to, we'll run a 5K, right? And
Okay.
everything in between.
All right.
So CrossFit, as we say, is infinitely scalable. Anybody can do CrossFit, right? And we can scale or modify any type of functional movement to make you successful and get the stimulus that you need. So, man, Saturday's workout, we did 4 rounds of a 500-meter row and 1,000-meter bike, and we rested 3 minutes, and we did that 4 times.
And that was
Right?
a complete workout.
That was it.
And that was
it for the day.
And that was an hour.
The actual workout itself, when we started, takes about 25 minutes, but we go through a general warm up, and then we do some specific teaching on rowing technique and biking technique. We may do a little test round to see how it's going to feel, and that usually takes about 30 minutes. And so we have 30 minutes to do the workout. And if we have time left over at the end of class, we'll do a cool down, some mobility work, and some stretching.
That's interesting. And so I mean, when I think of CrossFit in general, I don't think of, endurance stuff. Like, I know you guys row and I know you guys bike, but I think of weights. So not always is there strength training in a CrossFit session.
No, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, definition of CrossFit is constantly varied functional movements executed at relatively high intensity, right? From everything from, sometimes we just have a weightlifting day. Sometimes it's just endurance. Sometimes it's a mix. So,
and how many days do people what do you guys recommend for typically working out? Is it how many days a week?
so our recommendation, so if you're starting CrossFit, because nobody's really used to the intensity, because CrossFit workouts are hard. So we usually say, hey, let's do a few weeks at 3 days a week. But for, the most of our members are 4 to 6 days a week. And it's an hour session that includes warm up, teaching, cool down, and workout.
And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, is that each workout is varied enough that you're not really going to be, overworking your upper body or lower body, because there's endurance stuff there, there's strength stuff there. So are the workouts designed where, like on a Monday you'll do, and I'm just using an example. On a Monday you'll do, biking, rowing, and on a Tuesday you'll do, more weightlifting stuff. Is that kind of how they're designed?
For the most, yeah, you hit it. So, it is varied. It's not random, right? So, we've got so in our programming, we've got, 1 day a week, we're not going to see any weights. One day a week, we're going to go overhead with a weight. Those types of things, right? We're going to probably do some squatting movement 2 or 3 times a week. We're going to do a hinging movement like a deadlift or a clean 1 to 2 times a week. So we have a set of governance right here. So we don't see those types of overuse injuries, right? We're not going to be doing presses, 3 days in a row.
Yeah,
as an
right,
example,
right.
right?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So one thing you were discussing is CrossFit is not just training and exercise. There's also a nutrition component. Can you explain the nutrition component of CrossFit?
So from a very high level, so CrossFit, so it's very simple from a very high level. It's eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar.
So don't eat it if it doesn't rot.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Exactly.
Eat real food. That's what we say on this podcast all the time, Jason, is, just if you stick to eating real food, you'll probably be
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so if you want to get more specific, what they teach us is the zone diet, which is basically a 40-30-30 split between carbs, proteins, and fats. So 40% of your calories are coming from carbs, 30% of your calories are coming from proteins and fats. Okay. And if those of you that are familiar with the zone diet, they use blocks, which equates to, it's basically counting macros or another fancy way of counting calories. So, but if you just stick to eating real food, you're probably going to be just fine.
Right. I mean, I get into some debates, friendly debates with people,
Mhm.
and I'm a MyFitnessPal junkie. I
Mhm.
just am, but I also talk to people that you don't need to track macros or even track calories if you're eating real food, and there's some truth to that. And the example I give is, when if we want to use a real biological example, when a lion is gonna, when a lion is gonna attack a gazelle, they don't say, well, gee, I wonder how much carbs, protein, and fat is in that meal,
Right.
or how many calories. I mean, they
Mhm.
just eat it when they can. Now,
Yeah.
one of the issues is that, most of us have an unlimited food source in our pantry when we get home. So that's part of the problem. But like you say, if you eat meat, vegetables, and fruit, a little bit of fruit, then you'll probably be fine. So
Yeah.
so what would you say, Jason, is the top, if when you think of CrossFit, what would the top 5 exercises be when you think of CrossFit? And I know that's the whole point of CrossFit, is that it's not just one or two things, but what would you say the 5 most popular exercises are in CrossFit?
Well, probably the most popular exercises are the ones that nobody likes because they're so hard, right?
Yeah, there are some hard ones.
Probably the most famous CrossFit movement, I would say, is the thruster. So it's a front squat, and you combine it with a push press. So you're going from a front rack position with the barbell across your shoulders. You're going into a squat, and then as you come out of that squat, you're going to press the bar overhead.
What a great compound movement, though, and you get a
Yeah.
lot of work done in a short amount of time. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
great movement for sure.
Yep. Burpees always come up.
Yep. Yeah, those are good.
People, CrossFit gets a bad reputation around kipping pull-ups, so we use a gymnastics beat swing in order to get to use pull-ups. But it's an important distinction to note that yes, we do a lot of strict pull-ups in our training program. The reason why we use a beat swing, a gymnastics beat swing in our kipping pull-ups, is that we can do them faster. So if we can do them faster, we have a higher power output, gets our heart rate up a lot faster. So when we're doing those pull-ups, we're not necessarily looking for a muscular type of adaptation. We're looking for an aerobic adaptation, right?
Yeah.
We're looking to build that aerobic capacity. So we have our kipping pull-ups. Tire flips is probably another one. You see that in strongman all the time.
Yep.
Climbing a rope.
Yep.
Rope climbs are fun.
What about
Those are probably
muscle ups? Is that, I mean, I know
yeah.
that's a hard one for
So
sure.
there's two kinds of muscle ups. There's the bar muscle ups where you're using a pull up bar to do a muscle up
right.
on, and then we have ring muscle ups.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most technically challenging gymnastic movement in CrossFit,
The
right?
ring muscle up.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
using a set of rings like they would in like a gymnast would use, where they're doing the iron cross. But we use it in a sense of we're getting from below the rings from a hanging position to an extended position where you're self-supporting yourself with your arms above.
Now, I'm back on the pull-ups. Are those also butterfly pull-ups? Am I using the wrong term there?
Nope,
Why do is that the same thing?
it's a style of kipping pull-up.
Yeah.
So basically it's another way to speed up the repetition. So
Yeah.
we have kipping pull-ups and then we have butterfly pull-ups. So the butterfly is even faster, right? However, usually with that increased density comes, you're putting the shoulder through some pretty good forces. So we have a progression within our gym. It's like, hey, you can't do kipping pull-ups until you have so many pull-ups. You can't do butterfly pull-ups until you have so many kipping pull-ups. So we have a progression on where it goes back to the mechanics, consistency, intensity, right? Have to show good mechanics consistently, then we can show you the intensity.
Well, and the nature of CrossFit when it gets competitive is, like you say, with the kipping pull-ups or butterfly pull-ups, it's just a matter of what is the safest way that you can get the most reps in, and that's just the nature of CrossFit. So, when some, traditionals say, "Oh, well, that's cheating when it's doing pull-ups." It's like, well, it's not cheating in CrossFit. I mean, because your whole point is how many times can you pull your chin over the bar, right?
Right.
And I think CrossFitters have done a good job of figuring that out. And it's the same
Mhm.
thing with I think snatches is another common one. I mean,
Yes.
which, if the mechanics are wrong with snatches, I mean, it can get ugly fast. But by the same token, CrossFitters have really figured out how, what's the maximum amount, of reps you can do in a set period of time, and CrossFitters have really figured that out with their snatch technique. So, can you discuss that at all?
Yeah. So CrossFit really early on, we saw the videos of the CrossFit fails. But it's interesting. CrossFit has single-handedly been responsible for the boon of Olympic weight or the rebirth of Olympic weightlifting in the United States. Many of the top weightlifters in the United States all started in CrossFit. And then, hey, the snatch and clean and jerk, they fell in love with those lifts, and that's what they do full time. So we have a very good relationship. In fact, we have subject matter experts within the organization. So we have a weightlifting subject matter expert, and he's an internationally renowned coach, right? He writes all of the educational material for us. As an example, right? So now we're seeing CrossFitters. So the number one female CrossFitter right now, her name is Tia Claire Toomey. She competed in the sport. She's been to the Olympics in weightlifting. She's a top CrossFit for Australia.
Wow.
She went to the Rio Olympics and competed as a weightlifter there. And the following year, she competed in the Commonwealth Games and she won her weight class. So you can see the evolution of CrossFit from those early fails to now where, our top level athletes can compete with some of the regular athletes that are doing this full time.
Well, and it makes sense if that's what, because CrossFit, that's kind of what cross training is all about, is
Mm-hmm.
to, train you to be good in a certain sport. And I think, before the show, we were talking about how there's a lot of triathletes that do CrossFit. And, it makes a lot of sense because if you want a good, healthy body, you can't just focus on just one sport. You need to, do a variety of movements in order to have the best health.
Mhm. Consequently, a lot of CrossFitters do triathlons.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, I've got mountain bike racing friends that are CrossFitters.
Yeah.
Now, I think one of the most important things, and when I think of CrossFit, the first thing that comes to me is community. And there's kind of a running joke, and I hope I don't step on any toes by saying this, but it's actually a compliment. It's like, well, how do you know? Somebody does CrossFit? Well, because within the first 2 minutes of telling you, they'll tell you. The first 2
Absolutely.
minutes of meeting them, they'll
I
tell
already
you
know
they're
what
a
you're going to say.
CrossFitter.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
And they do. I mean, I'll be somewhere, wherever, traveling across the nation and meet somebody out of the blue, and I mean, within 3 minutes, they're telling me, "Well, I'm a CrossFitter." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I think there's a lot. Not. I think there's a lot to be said about community because we all want to be healthy, or at least most of us, and it's not easy to do it on our own. And I think the more you have community of supporters, the more chances that you'll have to stay consistent, and to stay motivated. So, can you tell us a little bit about how did CrossFit develop that community, and tell us a little bit about the community?
So when our founder kind of developed CrossFit, he never saw the community aspect in the initial parts. That just something that happened. Um, how did it evolve? It is, a lot of CrossFit started in the garage. Um, so a lot of these gyms that exist today, especially the older gyms, they all started in a garage and they were a bunch of friends. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to go, come on over. I'm going to do this crazy workout. Come do it with me. Right. And there's like, you get done with the workout and, hey, that was great. Hey, let's do it again tomorrow. And then your friends, their friends invite more friends. Pretty soon you run out of your space in your garage, and you go rent out an old warehouse somewhere,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of the birth of the community, where you have like-minded folks, you know, um, doing that, and it just kind of grows organically. I know for us, man, we do quite a bit outside of the gym. I mean, hey, we've got a 5K this today. I know for a fact that we're planning to do some Spartan races over the summer as a community. Sometimes we like to take our fitness outside of the gym, and we'll go to the park and get some paddle boards and paddle board on the lake and come do burpees and kettlebell swings as a giant team workout. We have a group of folks that do triathlons together. We do a ton of stuff outside the gym.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So, tell us what it typically runs, at least at your gym and maybe other gyms too, to be a member of a CrossFit gym.
So we have packages that start. My wife, this is where my wife comes in. She's way smarter at this than I am. I'm going to say around, we'll say 100 packages go from 100 to $150 per person. And, it's from 3 times a week to come and live at the gym as much as you can type of packages.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
In terms of cost relative to our peers, we're kind of on the low side of things. There are gyms in the Los Angeles area that are $300 to $400 a month.
Yep.
At those same packages. So what you get is,
go ahead.
What you get is you basically get a group style, but we're there to, number one, make sure that you're safe, right? That's first and foremost. 2, we're teaching you how to move, right? And prep you for these workouts. You're getting a warm up. Man, we're really striving for this to be your best hour of your day, We want this 60 minutes. Like, man, I've been at work all day. I can't wait until I go to the gym. That's what we're looking for. Right. And that's kind of what what you're paying for.
Well, that's priceless.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
and when you look at it overall, and we discuss this all the time on our podcast, whether it be with, your healthcare in general or paying for a gym membership, it's all about priorities. And, most of us pay, way too much money for one of these crazy devices or, eating out or fast food or Starbucks, things like that.
Yeah.
And, so when you think about it, and especially if you amateurize it over, if you do 20 workouts over a month and you paid $150, that's pretty inexpensive entertainment, and you got healthy doing it. So it's really all about priorities. And I know I travel to gyms all over the nation when I work out, and there are some gyms that, just to pop in and do one workout, it's 20 to $25 for one workout.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about priorities. And, I think that, $150 a month is very, very, there's a lot of value there. And let's remember that, when somebody is vested into something, they typically are going to be more compliant and want to use it more. Nothing we get out of life, usually, in general, there's exceptions. Nothing that's free do we ever have really has much value. I mean, I wouldn't say nothing, but there are exceptions. But if we're vested in it, we're going to get more value out of it.
Yeah, I was that guy. I was like, well, when I first heard of CrossFit, and I was like, oh, how much is it going to be? And I was like, holy smokes, it's going to be this. And basically, when you break it down to a class by class basis, $6 a class, and
Right.
so for me, it was, when we discussed joining CrossFit, and hey, I had a pretty healthy Starbucks addiction.
Yeah,
right. So I just stopped going to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah. It's all about priorities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jason, as we wind this podcast up, I got two questions for you. The first one is, what do you have a passion for?
Oh, man, my passions change. Man, I love helping people. I love the new member that comes in, and a new person, and when they come in, I always tell them the hardest thing about CrossFit is just getting here. Once you're in the door, I've got you in cruise control. I'm going to take you through this. And then seeing that person 3 to 6 months later, right? We had a member come in. She could barely do a burpee. She could barely get off the ground, right?
Yeah.
And, fast forward 6 months later, man, she's doing burpees all the time.
Yep.
Right. It's those kinds of successes where you see that their quality of life is improving. And, that's one of the things I like to tell people is take a picture now and then take a picture in 6 months. You might not see it on the scale, but you're going to see it in the picture.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, we always forget about those non-scale victories, and the scale can be a tool, but in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter what the scale says as long as we're looking better and we like our looks. I mean, that's really what the important part is.
Right, for sure.
So, Jason, how do we find out more about you or get a hold of you if we're interested in signing up for CrossFit?
So we're on Facebook and Instagram. CrossFit 4 Pillars. It's real easy to find. We have a website, crossfit4pillars.com. Those are probably the easiest way. We have our phone. I don't have there it is right there. Yeah, our phone number is there. You'll get my wife or our manager, Kelly Bragg, to probably, they're way better coaches than I am. It's like I tell people, they're the brains of the business. I'm just here to look pretty.
Yeah, I hear that. I can echo that for my business. Well, I appreciate being on today, Jason. I'd love to pop in someday. We'll have to stay in touch because I'd love to pop in someday and just do
Yeah.
a workout. So I'll have to kind of coordinate that sometime. So I'd really enjoy that because I've never done an actual CrossFit workout.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Cool. Well, thank you for being on so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. And anybody that is watching, please, if you're interested in CrossFit, or if you have CrossFit friends, please share this with them, tag them in this, because they need to hear about this, because it's a big community, and they need to share this, because it's definitely something to brag about. So thank you, Jason, for being on today. I really appreciate your time, and thank you, listeners and viewers. And tune in, I think Wednesday we will be on 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, my personal Facebook page, and the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube site. So stay tuned for that, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham.